What's up, Duelist? Your boy's back on his regular setup so I can be as loud as possible. Ah! See that? See that? That's me being as loud as I possibly can be. Anyway, this last weekend was RBET2 Season 3 online. So that's tying up the one at the top of this schedule. The next one is going to be taking place April 27th and 28th online as well, if you guys want to take place in that. And then, of course, there's a couple, or one other online one, and then 3 IRL ones to wrap up the season. So if you guys want to play in these types of tournaments, if you guys want to partake in these videos, be a part of this community, etc., make sure you're signed up for these. The IRL ones, you can find links for those signups in the description below. All 3 of them are going to be amazing. Los Angeles, Laurel, Maryland, and New York. Beautiful cities, all of them, just fantastic places. The venues are great. The people throwing them with me are awesome. So good shit to all of those people, and yeah, just come take part. So let's hop right into things with 8th place. 8th place, well, there's a 4-way tie for 8th place because it's Swiss. Few announcements actually before we get into this. While you guys are looking at the first deck list, first announcement is that huge shout out to Sevilla for manually inputting the Swiss bracket by hand after challenge crashed. So what we're gonna do moving forward is we're gonna do the remaining online RBETs of the season, the April 27th and the June 8th one. Those 2 are going to be double elimination tournaments. So there's one EU double elimination and one online double elimination tournament for North America. And this is to mitigate a lot of different things. First off, it's to mitigate, one thing that I want to talk about is people kind of getting frustrated with the time control. And also to mitigate the instance of challenge crashing and us having to manually input a bracket like we've had to do the past 2 times. So we are going to be playing double elimination on April 27th and 28th. And a huge shout out to Sevilla for making sure that this tournament was able to go to completion, although there was one minor mistake, which we will get into in a moment. Anyway, shout out to Hydropump. He made top 8. You may know Hydropump. He has a YouTube channel. He invented Dragon Turbo today, or this last weekend. He was playing Christia Sworn. This is actually ProStorm's list. I know ProStorm has been working a lot on this with Hydropump, I believe. They've been cooking some stuff. So, yeah, few things to note here. Only 2 Christia, only 2 Herald of Orange. I think that that's a little bit sus, personally, but worked out well for him. He was able to make it all the way to top 8. 0 Soul of Purity and Light, and instead 3 Wolves. So he elected to go for Wolf instead of Soul of Purity and Light. That is a little bit interesting to me. Soul of Purity and Light is a crucial fairy number for Christia. Without it, you really only have 8 fairies, which is a very low amount, 7 if you don't count the Christia itself. So it's pretty difficult to actually get to that 4th fairy as consistently as you can when you do play those Souls of Purity and Light. But on the flip side, you have 3 more insane mills in Wolf, Lightsworn, Beast. So the chances of you just like high rolling an early aggression victory are much higher. So I think that that's, a big trade-off here and there. I know that ProStorm is a big fan of Wolf. It's a really strong card. It improves a lot of matchups. It improves the Blackwing matchup. It improves the, I believe, the Vayu Turbo matchup a fair bit. And it also improves the Hero Beat matchup a lot. So 3 pretty popular decks. Hero Beat not so popular anymore. Blackwing's also this weekend not very popular. There was 0 Blackwings in top 8. We'll get into that in a second. But yeah, I think Wolves are interesting. It's an interesting choice. My Body is a Shield, really cool inclusion. Strange to include it over something like Giant Trunade. I'm not really sure why, but I guess it can counter stuff like Lightning Vortex in a way that Giant Trunade can't. So it's interesting. It's interesting. I don't hate it. I don't. It's very life point intensive, but I definitely don't hate it. Cold Wave, obviously a very broken card. I do like the inclusion of this card in the deck. I think that this is a card that it's pretty difficult to justify not playing in any Lightsworn deck. And then Double Threatening Roar as pieces of defense, as well as a Gorz as a piece of defense. Interesting choices altogether. Garroth, also an interesting choice. Usually people play a second Jane instead of the Garroth, because Garroth is really only for that Lumina Garroth play. It can sometimes come up where you like summon it alongside a Raikou, flip, and then mill 3 and hope to hit a Lightsworn and draw a card. That's pretty good too, but usually people don't play Garroth because he's not a starter on his own. And then especially when you have Wolves alongside your deck, that means you have 4 non-starters here in these slots that could potentially be starters, that type of thing. Sideboard, very straightforward. Royal Oppressions for Gladiator Beast, which is a terrible matchup. Another My Body as a Shield to help defend your Arch or Christia. One cool thing about My Body as a Shield is, unlike Giant Trunade, it helps protect you against opposing Herald of Orange Lights. A lot of fairy decks going around lately because the deck is strong. So, cool thing about My Body as a Shield is it helps you fight through specifically Herald of Orange Light at a very strong advantage. And then triple consecrated for the dark matchups. All right, next deck. Congrats to Hydro Pump on earning his invite. Next deck is OG99. Now, you might recognize him because he won the last RBET, if I remember correctly. Very strong player, incredibly strong player. He played a totally different deck. This time he played Dragon Turbo. For those of you guys who are new to the format, the way this deck works is you look to activate a bunch of card of consonants, trade in Magical Stone Excavation, card destruction, sometimes even summoning Bryonic from your extra deck to discard additional dragons, and then activate a Super Rejuvenation, draw your whole deck, discard cards in the end phase until you have stacked the perfect hand. If you played Magic the Gathering, it plays a lot like Doomsday, but a little bit slower because you have to pass a turn. So it's a very interesting deck. It's a very, very interesting deck. It's a very powerful deck. It has a couple of bad matchups, like Blackwings and some stun style decks can be really tough. Glads is a really tough matchup for this deck. But as of right now, Glads, Blackwings are pretty low in the meta, or they're lower than they were previously. Blackwings is on a significant downtick, just because I think people are playing other things. People have built to counter Blackwings, and the meta has finally shifted in a way that now that people know how to play against Blackwings, it's no longer the deck absolutely dominating as it was last year. So pretty interesting stuff. Sideboard is straightforward as heck. Mask of Restrict is an interesting one. It's not something I would ever think to include in this deck, but I guess you bring it in versus Frogs. They probably side out their Heavy Storm and their Space Typhoon, and then you just kind of instantly win when it's flipped, I guess. I feel like dedicating sideboard slots to Frogs when that matchup is incredibly free is kind of silly. So maybe he just had a certain side in, side out that he wanted to do. But yeah, I think Mask of Restrict is a little bit interesting. I wonder why that's there. Maybe there's like a fear of like, I don't know, Kawaki Mirror Guardian or Doom Caliber or something. There's a reason you side this. I don't really know what the reason would be. I don't know. I feel like there's some turns where you actually do want to tribute your own guys. Like sometimes you'll want to tribute your own Drago to unlock the special summoning abilities. But yeah, no additional Dragos in the sideboard, which is interesting. Prime material for Burn. Burn was pretty popular in this tournament. Actually, a lot of people playing various different Burn strategies. We saw, I believe, Pac-Man Burn and Chain Burn. Quite a few of those doing really well up until the later rounds of Swiss. So maybe that's something we'll see in the double elimination tournaments. I think people have been working on the Chamber decks a lot, but maybe not. Maybe people were just looking to exploit the time rulings of the event, and we'll see if that changes in double elimination or not. All right, congratulations to OG99, solidifying himself as a player to look out for and be scared of because he now has back-to-back tops, one of them being a win, in contention for being the GOAT of this year already. Next is Wolf1 on his first top with Evil Hero, Elemental, Prisma, Gaia, Big Piece Golem. This is a deck that was, I think, largely invented by Zytalos from Who Needs Meta. The way this deck works is you have Elemental Hero Prisma on the first few turns of the game, and you try to defend it and use him to set up your graveyard for your 5 powerful fusion spells. That's kind of the game plan of the deck. And when it goes off, it's very powerful. You can have very fast OTK turns where you just activate a Miracle, activate a Dark Calling, and that's 8,000. That's all you really need. And Evil Hero Dark Gaia is a very strong card into a lot of different stuff. You can also summon the Evil Hero Malicious Fiend by banishing Caius and Malicious Edge. There's a bunch of different fusion plays this deck can make. So it's super fun if you like the purple cards, if you like fusioning, and if you like playing kind of like a hodgepodge of interesting monsters in your deck. Yeah, there's a lot of like fun little plays where you can, use Prisma to send Grand Mole, then call back the Grand Mole, or you can use Prisma to send Cyber Dragon, then contact with your opponent's machines, their card trooper, that type of thing, deny them cards, or even eat a Machina Fortress. Legendary Jiu-Jitsu Master is a very slept-on card. I think it has a lot of potential in the format as just a defensive option versus decks like Blackwings or Dragons or other decks that are just looking to attack you with anything, honestly. If your opponent attacks into it with a recruiter, it feels pretty bad too as well, for the person with the recruiter, of course. And then just a DD Warrior Lady to round all of these things off. I think this deck looks really fun. Shout out to Wolf. He's a really chill dude. We hung out a little over a year ago at YCS Vegas, and just a great player. And I'm super happy to see him succeed and earn his invite. And this is where the scuffed part of this tournament came in. So because we were doing the bracket by hand, and we were all kind of like taxed with certain jobs, like I was streaming, and like the other judges, like a couple of them were not available to help with like certain judge calls or whatever. I don't really know exactly what the situation was, but there was a mistake when entering the bracket. So Wolf did not make it into the top 8 stream coverage, and instead the 9th place player made it in over him. However, in order to correct that situation, since Wolf wasn't able to play the top 8 anyway, we just let the other person play the match, and we've decided to award them both invites and pay them out both for their placements. So yeah, I think no harm, no foul. A little bit of a mistake on our end, but that was just due to like obviously challenge crashing and a lot of other stupid shit. So a little bit scuffed, but at the end of the day, I think it all worked out, and it's not a big deal. So good shit. Shout out to Wolf. His record, I believe, was X-1, 7-1, going into top 8, which is pretty impressive with a deck that you don't see that often. I don't think this deck is bad by any means. I think it's a little underpowered when compared with like some of the other Gaia options with regards to like the Demise Gaia deck or the Lightsworn Gaia decks. But I do think that this deck has an inherent consistency to it that those decks kind of lack, in that if you can just find Prisma, which you play 4 copies of between Rhoda, Ecall, 5 technically if you count Stratos, but if you can find Prisma, you can pretty much guaranteedly get to at least half of Dark Calling or all of Miracle Fusion, which is pretty strong. I think a card having a built-in Foolish Burial has consistently been a very powerful effect, even if the Foolish Burial is for something as silly as Big Piece Golem. But yeah, that's pretty much it. In the sideboard, the Shadow Mirror and the Light Mirror, both very interesting. Light Mirror, incredibly interesting because it does shut off your own Prisma. So probably figuring that he needs the Light Mirrors more than he needs his own Prisma effect. That's kind of interesting. I don't know how that worked out for him. I'd be curious to ask him about that. Super Poly actually great in this deck because of how many fusion options you can sort of set up. All right, moving on. Next deck. Congratulations to Wolf on earning his top. We've got Bad Robot Yugioh, who made it to, I believe this is the last top 8 deck. Yes, Bad Robot made it to top 8, playing Diva Hero. Now, I know he worked on this list with a couple other people. I don't really remember exactly who, but he said the MVP was having both Dark Grepher and Armageddonite and Necrogardna as a send option. This deck is pretty interesting with Necrogardna. You can easily put up a powerful Synchro Monster like Brownic or Magical Android or Stardust Dragon or something to that nature, and then defend it with Necrogardna, making it very difficult for your opponent to like amount comebacks, and it gains you a pretty big tempo initiative. Now, whether or not I think that that's actually good, that's up in the air, but it worked out very well for Bad Robot Yugioh, and his record, I believe, was 7-1 going into the top 8, which is a pretty impressive record. The rest of the deck looks as straightforward as it could possibly look for a Diva Hero deck. One thing I know a lot of people have been experimenting with is actually playing a second Gilman in this deck, which is interesting. It's possible you could see a very similar deck without maybe the Armageddon or the Grepher and the Necrogardna, and then it plays a second Gilman and maybe one other tech card, something like, I don't know, an Upstart Goblin or something like that. Sideboard, very straightforward. One thing that's pretty interesting is the Karma Cuts. They were MVP for him on camera when he was featured. So if you do tune into the live, in the live tab, the tournament VODs are still up, and you want to watch this bad motherfucker play his Diva Hero deck, you can check it out. So congrats to Bad Robot on earning his invite. Moving into top 4, I believe. Yes, top 4. We have Tiberium Yu-Gi-Oh! With Vayu Turbo, with double the Deck Dev main. This is kind of the story of this tournament. Deck Devastation Virus is an insane card versus a lot of decks. It's kind of a cheesy card. It's kind of unfair. But it did secure him a place in top 4. That's kind of like the big adaptation here. He's not playing Return. He's not playing Chaos Sorcerer. He just decided to go for 2 deck devs for the cheese factor, and it worked out incredibly well for him, carrying him all the way to top 4, which is really, really solid. Another thing is he does have triple Sirocco in the main. I know some people play double Sirocco in the main. I'm a big triple Sirocco fan, especially when you're deck deving people. I'm also a big triple Grepher fan, especially when you're deck deving people. I feel like this deck definitely needs triple Grepher. I think it was him on camera who lost a match because he didn't have a third Greffer in his deck, if I remember correctly. I may be misremembering which player it was, but yeah, I think triple Greffer makes a lot more sense when you have main deck devs, but that's just me. Gores is a deck dev target, which is interesting as well, so having that in the main, some people don't play Gores in the main, is interesting. Rest of the main looks pretty standard, one impression, normal shit. Sideboard, he's got a Breaker and a Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer, both of them great in the mirror. Triple Pulling the Rug for Frogs, triple Dust Tornado. There was actually a game, I'm not sure if it was Tiberium or if it was another player we'll talk about later, who resolved all 3 Dust Tornadoes, which is pretty interesting. The fact that that does come up and does matter is you know, it goes to show that having triple Dust Tornado will actually matter if you want that. All right, next top 4 deck. Congratulations, Tiberium. He played well. He did well. Solid deck. I think the deck devastation viruses were a great choice in a week with no Blackwings, and just did well for him overall. All right, moving on. Next, top 4. We have Frog Heroes from Ape King Alex. Ape King Alex played a very interesting Frog Hero deck. Double Legacy of Yatagarasu, a full 8 trap cards in his Frog deck, and that worked out very well for him. 3 discard traps in the Regeki breaks, 1 Torrential, 1 Mirror Force, 1 Trap Dust Shoot. You'll notice some interesting tech cards in his deck. He's got a tech Dandelion, a tech Elemental Hero Bubble Man. These are some interesting techs. The Dandelion is something that I've played myself on this channel in the past. And then I saw Fraser Smith pick it up a little bit later. It's just an Earth option that you can send off of Future Fusion, and it's a good discard off of Regeki Break. It also kind of gives you a defensive game plan in the case that your Treeborns get removed or you haven't found your Treeborns. He's playing the 2 Swap Frogs, which I think is moving to be more and more standard. That is something that I think is a nice room slot where, you know, you have 5 ways to find Treeborn, 6 if you count Future Fusion, really, turn 1. And then you also have other great turn 1 normal summons in Stratos. Technically, Ecall and Rhoda are also great turn 1 normal summons. And even Dandelion is a great turn 1 normal summon. So you have plenty of starters, really, in this deck, that you don't need to have that just giant amount of frogs that you could potentially brick on. I still am curious about the Monarch ratio of only playing 4 Monarchs in this deck, but it seemed to work out very well for Ape King Alex. He made it all the way to top 4. The sideboard is very interesting. He's got Armed Sea Hunter. Now, if you guys are unfamiliar, which I am as well, we're going to go ahead and look that card up. Armed Sea Hunter Yugioh. I have no idea what this card does. I know its name, and that's about it. I know it was used at moments. Okay, here he is. He looks pretty sick. I'm not going to lie. He looks kind of badass. All right, he's a Sea Serpent. He's a 4-star water. He's 1800 attack, 400 defense. If you control another face-up water monster, negate the effects of the monster that battled with this card. After damage calculation, if this card would be destroyed, you can destroy one face-up level 3 or lower water monster you control instead. So, as we're looking at, not this deck, sorry, spoiler alert. As we're looking at this deck, I could definitely see this coming in just as a way to defeat Fossil Dyna, but also as a way to sort of attack pesky recruiters. Things like Shining Angel. Does that work? Is that how that works? Does this negate recruiters? Does it negate the effects of the monster that battle with this card after damage calculation? Does this negate recruiters? I don't even know. I don't even know how this card works. I think it does. It at least for sure negates Raikou. See, negate the effects of the monster that battle with this card after damage calculation. I mean, it negates Raikou for sure. I'm not sure if this negates like battle recruiters. I'm gonna have to Google it. And you know what? Fuck it. Fuck it. Let's look it up right now. Shout out EdisonFormat.com for having the rules easily accessible. Individual card rollings. There we are. A. Oh my gosh, this is so easy. There it is. Armed Sea Hunter. Okay. This effect activates in subset 5. Okay, we didn't ask. The effect activates even if Armed Sea Hunter is destroyed by battle. Interesting. This effect is continuously applied to destroy a monster, even in the graveyard. If it destroys Treeborn Frog, its effects in the graveyard cannot be activated, but will resolve negated. Okay, so yeah. So yeah, it does kill recruiters and negate their effects. And it will also permanently negate things like Plague, Vayu, and what's that other guy? Treeborn Frog. So really sick, really sick card. Interesting tech choice. I wonder how much it came up for Ape King Alex, he's got one Wild Heart, which is another really interesting tech. It's just something you can search for that can guaranteedly kill Fossil Dino through almost every playable back row, which is really, really clean tech. I really like his sideboard. I'm actually a big fan of this deck. It looks really nice. The one thing I'm like kind of like, what the fuck is the Bubble Man? But I understand. Bubble Man just gives you that late game where both had 0 cards. I top deck an E-Call. I can E-Call for Bubble Man, special it, draw 2 cards, and then possibly high roll into a Monarch and come back into the game. That's pretty sick. I think it's kind of a high roll option, but it's pretty sick. You know, I can't deny it. It's pretty cool. And like, are you really ever using Ocean effectively in this deck? Probably, but Bubble Man's cooler. So I gotta respect the swag choice there. I'm sure there's other things like normal Junk Synchron, special Bubble Man. If it's the last card in your hand, you can make a Black Rose Dragon or something like that. That could maybe come up. I'm not really sure how he would go about that. But that's interesting. That's interesting. I wonder if there's a reason why he plays a Bubble Man over the Ocean. I think it is not a bad choice by any means. Congratulations to Ape King Alex for making it all the way to top 4 with a very unique and innovative Frog Hero deck list with lots of cool tech. And then moving on to top 2, second place, you got Masha Rose. Probably one of the best players right now, like hands down. I hung out with her a little bit at YCS Vegas this year, and I was watching her play some games, and I was just like, okay, she knows what she's doing. Like, she's really, really strong. And then I watched her play a few more games, and I was like, yeah, I hope I never have to play against her. Like, she actually is just so cracked. She knows exactly what's up with her opponent at every given moment. It's just cool to watch. It's cool to watch. Very, very gifted player. And she was playing her signature deck, which is Christia Swarm. She's very, very strong with this deck. And she's got a very different list from Hydro Plump. So first thing, right off the bat, you'll notice no Wolves. Triple Christia, triple Herald, double Solar Purity and Light. So really leaning into the fairy cards. And they obviously worked out great for her. She made it all the way to second place, which is a great finish. So that's really, really nice. 2 hamsters instead of the 3 we sometimes see. Main deck 1 compulsory, main deck 1 heavy storm, main deck card destruction. So some unique options, not playing the Gold Sarks, which are often played in this deck. Gold Sark, sometimes a card that's a little bit too slow versus Blackwings. But obviously there was not as many Blackwings in this tournament, so we don't really know if that may or may not have made a difference for her throughout the day. But yeah, on the double Jane is really good into a lot of different stuff. It runs over Hamster, it runs over Sirocco, so it does pretty well in combat. It can also help you deal with stuff like Doom Caliber or Quackimero Guardian, or even just like Thunder Kings, or like whatever random bullshit. Jane just deals with it because the effect does not activate. It's also great versus Glads. Once again, they can't chariot its effect to gain attack because it is a continuous effect. It does not activate. So really, really strong card when going on the offensive. Interesting to see too, but I agree with the decision. Playing the Necro and the Plague for the defensive options. Other than that, there's not really much to say about the main deck. It looks pretty straightforward. Looks like a very solid main deck. These look like 40 great cards. The compulsory is a little bit interesting. I'm like curious to see why. Like, obviously there's the special JD priority blow up. If they chain bottomless, you chain compulsory, and then you just respecial the JD. That's a cool play. There's a bunch of different cool plays you can do with compulsory that I'm a big fan of. But that's like the first one that comes to mind, obviously, because that's the most hype one. In the sideboard, you've got a Twister to deal with Light Mirror, Space Typhoon to deal with Light Mirror. That card is a bitch for this deck to deal with. Double Royal Decree. Does shoot Mind Crush. Interesting. I wonder if that's for Dragon Turbo. That might be for Dragon Turbo specifically, but it could also come in versus Frogs or a bunch of other things. Dust Shoot is just a great card in general, especially when going first. 1 Gel and Duo. I believe she said in the post-tournament report that the Gel and Duo was for the Dragon matchup. It's pretty difficult for them to OTK you through a set Gel and Duo, so it gives you an opportunity to come back into the game. And worst case scenario, it counts as 2 tributes for Archlord Christia, so you can like set it, and then on the second turn, like maybe you go first, you set Gel and Duo, you pass the turn back, they go big draw, big draw, big draw, and then on your turn you tribute your set Gel and Duo for Archlord Christia, and then you lock them out of going for their big OTK. So pretty interesting tech choice. I think that it's pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a big fan. It might even make the thumbnail, but really sweet stuff. Extra deck looking very, very well tuned. Got the Tempest Magician for the Plague plus Lila Burnout. Got the Avenging Knight so you can sow Pal for game. Got the Ancient Sacred so you can Cyber Dragon plus Herald for game. There's a bunch of different cool synchros that are not commonly used. So sick stuff. Shout out to Masha for making second place. And then, of course, first place, we got Cold Madness, one of the strongest players right now, if not the strongest player right now. Cold Madness, he's topped a bunch. Let's be real. He's topped, I think, with Fairies, Blackwings in the past, and this is his first, I think he's even won other tournaments in the past, so I don't think this is his first, big tournament W, but, yeah, no, I had made a prediction pretty early on in the tournament that he would win the entire event, and I was right. I was right, of course, because I'm always right, but I was also wrong because Vayu Turbo won the tournament, and I was like, you know what, Vayu Turbo's kind of mid. People are gonna adapt to it. People are gonna deal with it, and here I am eating my words yet again. The deck wins yet again. Is someone gonna come up with something that beats this deck? Probably, but they haven't so far. His list looking very different from Tiberium's. He's got no main deck Devastation Virus, which, again, don't need it in the main. He's got it in the side. He's got the one Icarus attack. He's playing 41 cards, which is very interesting. But he's also a little bit more threat dense. He's got the Chaos Sorcerer and the Return from a Different Dimension. So he's got a little bit more ways to win the game beyond just the standard Dark Armed, Brain Control, Burial, 3 power cards that the standard value deck normally plays. So, yeah, I think Return is a great choice. I think Icarus Attack is a great choice in this deck as a one-of. Obviously, it won Dimitri his first place finish at RBET Rulers last season. And Cold Madness just makes an argument for being one of the top players right now, if not the top player right now. So really solid stuff. Not playing Cyber Dragon at all, I've noticed. Gives him a little bit more extra deck space to play with. He's got the third Armed Wing instead. Sideboard, very straightforward. Triple Dust once again. He's siding Mind Control. I think that's a great choice. Siding Mind Crush. I don't know what this is for, but I've lately been unimpressed with Mind Crush. It's okay versus some decks and if you get a Soul Read, but it's kind of just a high roll card. Yeah, in a lot of senses. But it can be good. It just depends. Siding Starlight Road, probably for Blackwings. Double Pulling for Monarchs. Double DD Crow. Now, this is a card that I don't even think Tiberium was siding. Let me go back real quick. Where was Tiberium's list? Oh, he was siding Double DD Crow as well. But yeah, Double DD Crow ended up winning him the tournament. There was a turn where he deck dev'd against Masha in Game 3. He saw her hand. He was able to do a torrential play because Masha made an interesting choice to summon into the torrential in a certain sense. And then he was able to DD Crow the 4th Lightshorn name, keeping her off of her double Judgment Dragon that was in hand. Very important DD Crow. Literally tournament winning DD Crow. So big shouts to DD Crow for that one. He needs to get an ultimate rare or something because that's a story for the books, you know what I'm saying? So shout out to Cold Madness, very strong player. He played, I don't think I saw him make a single play error on camera. It was pretty impressive run, I'm not going to lie. Would be cool to get those footage, those games. I wonder if he's going to post them somewhere, maybe in the edisonformat.com Discord. And Vayu Turbo wins yet again. I'm interested to see if people adapt to it, if people beat it. I know a lot of people did very well versus Vayu Turbo in this tournament, but they didn't do very well against it in the finals, which I guess is... Oh, one more thing I should mention is Masha was undefeated up until the finals. So her overall record, I think, was 10-1 with Christia Swarm, which is very insane. But yeah, I think Cold Madness, great job, great deck build. And then the last deck I want to show you guys, I want to do a little bonus deck like I normally do, is Yugioh. He got 9th, but he did play in the top 8 due to the bracketing error that I mentioned earlier. He got 9th with Machina, Raiko, Hamster, just Machina good stuff deck. Really interesting list. He's not playing the DD Warrior Lady that a lot of people normally play. Instead, he's playing Trigodia, which is cool. He's playing triple Avarice, triple Compulsory, double Book to try and protect his Machina Fortresses, make sure they don't get banished, and to reuse his Machina Force so that if the Machina Fortress gets destroyed, he can just reborn it pretty easily. I think this list is very interesting from Yugioh. I think it's a little bit threat light. I think if the fortresses do get banished, then this deck is going to struggle to win a game. So food for thought on constructing this deck if you're going to copy his list or something like that. But if you do end up playing this exact list, just make sure to defend your fortresses because they are very crucial to this specific build of this list winning a game. The sideboard, really interesting. Triple Crow, Triple Snowman, Double Soul Release, Super Poly to make Absolute Zero or Elemental Hero Gaia. Really interesting choice. Triple Dust Tornado, 1 Starlight Road, and Double Trap Hole for Blackwings. So just a lot of 3-ofs, a lot of fuck this strategy, I don't want to lose to it type beat. 5 Graveyard Hate pieces. Very straightforward stuff. And technically, this is GBO's 3rd top in a row. So just goes to show the players who are playing Cold Madness, GBO, Masha, of course, a lot of these guys are first time tops, but OG99 and Hydro Pump, like these are the guys who are playing the most. And as you can see, it rewards them. They top events, and it doesn't really matter what deck they're playing. They're playing like a bunch of different decks. As a result, if you play more, you're going to be more experienced. You're going to win more games. And that's ultimately the most important thing in this format, which is super, super cool. And it's also tight to give Evil Hero Dark Gaia its first RBET top 8. So that's really cool. Really, really cool event. It was exciting. Thank you guys who bared with me through the commentary. I was traveling at the time. And I hope to see you guys at the future RBET. Now make sure you guys are subscribed, like, all that stuff. The content over the next few days is going to be an absolute banger. Swagger's in town, and he's going to be staying at my house, and so I'm going to basically force him to record some videos with me. And I know a lot of you guys seem to like the Swagger videos. They are the best performing videos over the last month, even better performing than the RBET tournament itself. So, yeah, just stay tuned, and I'll see you guys in the next vid. Peace.